Welcome to Meddling Focus, home of K-pop. Please enjoy. Please enjoy.
さて、最後の仕上げは宝石を取り出すことだ。女の体の中で最も美しいもの、それがこれだ。
セクシー。
Oh man, guys, it sounds like we are in the vicinity of Innsmouth again, listening to some radio of the gratis variety. Episode 82 this week, we're going to be covering a couple of bands. We have Ancient and Kvist, both of whom are under-recognized bands from Norway. Now, at first glance, the first Ancient album seems like it might be pretty standard Bathory / Immortal worship. Pretty thick and deep and bassy for black metal at this early stage. And of course there is a heavy influence from Bathory's second album, The Return, going on in these very vociferous riffs that are mostly staying within the realms of the chromatic rather than the melodic. However, it will not remain this way forever. And we get into a bit more melodic tremolo stuff, which is still very ahead of its time. This album came out pretty much right after the starting gunshot of the Norwegian scene. This is from 1994. And these guys were so ahead of the curve, they actually made it onto the True Kings of Norway compilation with early Arcturus and Emperor and Immortal and such. So rather than a band that was like a follower type band of the other Norwegian stuff, they are in a similar position to Gorgoroth, wherein they essentially started maybe 5 steps behind the starting gun at the track meet that is Norwegian black metal. Most people are running because they don't want Varg to stab them. However, they were still late enough in the Norwegian black metal game that they did take influence from some of the earlier bands, specifically a little trick from Dark Throne. So this is a nifty little trick Dark Throne came up with on Where Cold Winds Blow, where they pick out this spooky sounding triad of notes from the bar chord that give a very mysterious feel. When Ancient got their hands on it, they made it considerably more complex and took it into less of a overtly satanic and evil sounding direction and more of just a mysterious and dark one. And because the production is so bassy, they can use that bass guitar as kind of a pedal tone to accentuate the chords. You notice they keep hitting that root note and then moving up on the neck. And the intervals between these two chords, there's like a half step, so it's very dissonant and creepy sounding. Good vocals too, of course. So this further development in the Dark Throne sound actually heavily influenced Mutilation and later French bands. See that same use of that central tone through the expanding triads of spooky devil chords. And of course that kind of riff ended up being ran with by Peste Noire, so in effect Ancient is somewhat responsible for what Peste Noire is today, and for that I thank them. However, Ancient were also capable of using that same kind of triad type riff where you're picking out those 3 notes in sequence from the bar chord. They take that, and it doesn't have to be dark, it can also just be very epic sounding. And they do this by synthesizing that Dark Throne technique with another one. And this one you're alternating between the low notes of the chord and the high notes to give it kind of a jangling sound, and then you're just beefing it up with those higher notes. Very epic type stuff. That was off of Dark Throne's third album. And so when you combine that with those more spooky sounding riffs, you get a very epic sounding thing in Ancient. They're still using those minor chords, but they aren't hitting quite the same level of dissonant intervals. Then the bass helps beef the sound up considerably. Again, this is very bass-heavy stuff. Actually, a lot of the early Norwegian black metal stuff had pretty impressive bass playing, despite what you may have been led to believe by death metal fanatics criticizing the treble focus of black metal. And then there's that other dark throne technique that has been worked into the mishmash, bringing these two ideas together, coupled with some fairly impressive guitar layering, gives you this pretty unique sound. Especially having a cleaner guitar playing along with the bass sort of makes them into one kind of weird sounding instrument. And then there's that dark throne technique on full display. This one right here. Yeah! Those are some good riffs. And going back to bringing the Bathory influences into the modern era again. Remember Bathory riffs like this? This is the sort of embryonic form of what would later on become a Viking metal riff. But in this case, it's still very dark and black metal. This is off of Under the Sign of the Black Mark. This is Enter the Eternal Fire. And this style of guitar playing was later picked up on and developed further by Ancient. So in a way, Ancient is sort of like if there's like first wave black metal and second wave black metal, they're like 1.5 wave. If that makes any sense, they're bridging the two eras. See, very similar riff. Also pretty cool bass strumming right there, I think. Normally I'm not a big fan of using a pick on a bass, but I think the Ancient guy makes it work. Gives it a bit more bite. But they've taken that sort of Bathory style riff and they've added the tremolo picking to it, made it considerably more melodic and consonant, which gives us a type of black metal that isn't necessarily evil, but it's still very dark and mysterious sounding. And that's a really cool transition riff. Sort of a weird, bouncy, semi-thrash riff. Back into the Bathory worship that isn't really worship so much as extrapolation on Korthon's initial ideas. One of the main things the Norwegians did with black metal was they took it out of the realm of the strictly satanic and put it more in sort of just nocturnal, nature, pagan type stuff. And Ancient typifies this on this album. I love this part. Really unique sounding riff. Almost sounds like something you might hear on like a Grand Belial's Key or an Argoslan album. Like that kind of very laid-back double bass drumming there was interesting as well. And with that, we close the door on Ancient. I haven't really kept up with them since that first album. I mean, it's not like the main guy behind the band converted to Christianity and then made a bunch of concept albums about gay vampires or anything.
Get the fuck away from me, you fucking nigger.
Oh, that actually did happen, didn't it? Oof. And he also pulled a double Gorgoroth. So basically, not only did he go gay, like Gaul, but he also was like Pest. He moved to America, but instead of just not doing anything and like managing a Burger King or whatever the fuck Pest did for like those 15 years, he hooked up with Lord Vlad Luciferian, also known as Lord Fag Pussyferian, who had recently gotten kicked out of Grand Belial's Key for being a wiener and made some really shitty Ancient albums. Don't listen to any Ancient after the first album. Holy shit, did they get bad. But luckily, another band was there to pick up the slack with the not necessarily evil, but still very dark black metal with heavy bass presence in Norway, and that was Kvist. Listen how thick that is. And these very weird technical riffs. You gotta wonder if these guys came from a death metal background. This album came out of nowhere in like 1996. These guys were in like, I think like indie rock bands and punk bands. Somehow they got into black metal and they did some really cool stuff. With heavily technical bass parts and just those really sparkly tremolo riffs. I like these vocals, they remind me a bit of Dodheimsgard from the same time. Very subdued sounding. I like it. Whoa. Calm down, lady. I said subdued, but yeah, this part's pretty fucking dope. Probably one of my favorite parts in black metal. Check out the crazy bass playing and with that arpeggiated riff. Very cool stuff from these guys. And they even work in a bit of a strange folk influence. Gotta like the tastefully done keyboards. There's so much stuff going on, it's hard to commentate and dissect all of it. Basically, go and get this album, it's amazing. There's that same style of Bathory riff again. And now we have sort of a technical death metal take on Norwegian folk music, done in a very dissonant manner. I haven't really heard anything else like this outside of Darkthrone on Goat Lord, and even then it wasn't quite this weird. But they managed to iron it back out with that tremolo riff, so what would normally be a disparate element is actually incorporated into the song very well. But it's still plenty weird, don't get me wrong. And really cool layered tremolo melodic guitar riffs playing off of each other. Unfortunately, these guys put out the one album for Kunsten mal Vigvik, and then they fucking vanished and they haven't done anything since then. Oh well, at least you have 2 good albums to listen to this week. You got that first Ancient album and the one and only Kvist album. Short episode, hope you liked it. Hopefully I don't get yelled at by the powers that be with their spray bottle, and I'll see y'all around.
Oh, Howard, excuse me, but your wife's cookies are out of this world.
What who told you you can eat my cookies?
Oh, these cookies! I gotta get the recipe from Liv.
Put that cookie down! Now!